Okay, guys, welcome back to Over the Money Fence. We're just saying what a great name that is.
We love it, our fave.
The podcast that helps you take control of your finances with clarity and confidence. And how bloody important is that?
I know, confidence, it is. Can you believe it's
essential.
October?
We've done a few, haven't we?
This is number
year?
6.
Yeah, it's been so popular.
So popular.
It's actually astounded us. So in our last episode, let's all recap. We explored how we can start building wealth through traditional asset classes like shares, property, and private credit. Roger took us through the power of compounding. Yahoo, I learned all about it. And that was such an eye-opener for all of us.
Remember that example there? If you didn't listen to it, tune back to last one. When I think it was like you put $10,000 in at the age of 20. And if you I guess 15% is a good sort of return, don't touch it until you're 70.
It's incredible.
And how much was it?
It was 1.4 million. Yeah, it was astounding. It blew me away. That's the understatement of the year.
Feedback we've got from that. Keep our feedback coming in too.
I love how Roger's quiet over there because I said to him once, Roger, I'm doing the intro. He's like,
bossy.
all right.
No more bossy die.
So look, guys, we've loved hearing your questions, and the feedback is actually such a variety from different people. So whatever you do, just please keep them coming in because Roger's so happy to respond.
I know, we're so lucky to have that. So today we are turning our attention to two of the most talked about assets, gold and Bitcoin. So why do investors turn to gold in uncertain times? Is Bitcoin really digital gold? What other ways can investors access digital asset markets? So to help us unpack all this, we really want to know about this. We're joined again by our favourite financial expert, Roger Montgomery, founder and chairman of Montgomery Investments Management. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
So there's a button under the desk that Di presses and then,
we can talk.
Then my microphone comes on. I love that you're draped in gold.
Exactly.
Your drip is fully gold.
We love gold. I always have. I've got some. That was
Because
my
you've got
mother's.
gold
I've got
everywhere.
Gold, I've got, so really want to know about gold because it's on. It's talking about on trend. You're hearing it
and Bitcoin
everywhere.
that we're going to talk about both of them.
But I don't know whether we love gold for all the wrong reasons because
Probably.
whether it's white gold, gold from Tiffany's
It's
or
true.
rose
Like
gold.
I don't wear silver. I never wear. It's weird.
Yeah, I
I'm
used
a gold
to.
girl.
Trends have changed
Well, you've
so
got gold
much.
silver on
I've
your
got
watch.
exactly
Yeah.
white gold.
But
gold,
I've
yellow
just
gold.
always been a gold girl.
But I guess
So
this is really
gold.
what we're here to talk about today. But jewellery is a great one. So questions really. So why do these so-called boring investment people like gold?
Well, at the moment, there's a ton of reasons, and I use ton quite deliberately, partly because it's seen as a way to preserve your wealth in a world where fiat currencies, and fiat currencies are the US dollar, the Aussie dollar, the normal currencies, not digital currencies. So in a world where fiat currencies are devaluing because of all sorts of reasons, and we can go into that in a minute, people feel, well, how can I protect my wealth if the US dollar, for example, is declining? Yeah. And if you don't like Trump's policies on the budget and taxes and so on, he's undermining the independence of their central bank, a bit like our Reserve Bank of Australia, but the US version of that is called the Federal Reserve. And so if you believe that he's undermining the independence of the central bank, then what implications will that have for the economy? And so people are saying, you know what, I don't want the US dollar, it's going down. What can I buy that's going to protect me? I don't want to own the Chinese yuan. I don't want to own a Russian currency or any other currency. I don't feel as safe in those as I would in the US dollar, but the US dollar's going down. So what can I do to protect myself? I'm going to buy gold. And that's what people have been doing. And so gold is now, as we record this potty, gold is at a record high. It's at the highest it's been.
For how long?
For just about ever. Not on an inflation-adjusted basis. On an inflation-adjusted basis.
I've been learning about that. You'll be very proud of me.
Well, very proud. It's been up here, but on a nominal basis, it's we're at record highs. And so the other problem, well, this is a problem, when particular asset classes hit record highs, it then makes the mainstream media And then what happens is people who have no knowledge of what they're doing or no understanding of why they're doing it, they all jump in as well, and it pushes it up even further potentially. And so, at the moment, higher prices beget higher prices. So it's going up, and we're talking about it on this podcast because it's sort of the topic du jour. And so more people are going to find out about it and think, well, maybe I should jump on gold as well. But remember, it's at a historic high. You often don't make great returns long term if you buy something at historic highs. Doesn't mean it won't keep going up in the short term.
That's really interesting. Like I was just saying, I even heard it on mainstream radio. They were talking about it. Now there's a TV show, Gold. I think it's Gold Hunting or Gold Digging or whatever.
Yes,
too.
Yeah, there is.
And so it is interesting too. So when you're sort of thinking mainstream, they're going. I can understand people going. Well, actually, that seems to be the one. I'll buy it now.
Well, so there's a company that's listed on the Australian Stock Exchange called Codan, and Codan manufactures. They're based in South Australia. They manufacture widely regarded as the world's best metal detectors or gold detectors, and they're reporting record sales all around the world because people are buying gold detectors because gold's at a record high. So let's buy a gold detector for Christmas and go and find some gold. And I've seen some videos and I'm a bit nervous about them. But
I'm only thinking about school holidays with the kids.
Yeah,
everyone's got one. It's going to be a fun holiday.
So on trend
No, Dad,
at the
it's
moment.
not.
It's a way of making extra money. They're sort of saying.
How deep can a
so
metal
the
detector
new
go?
ones, like the really fancy, expensive ones, they cost about $10,000. But they can find a gram of gold in metres and metres of solid rock. Now, you're not going to dig metres and metres of solid rock to get it, but the device is accurate enough now that it can find it.
Fascinating.
It is incredible. So anyway, there's lots of second-order consequences because gold is now at a record high. And what's also happening, and I think this is really important to understand, is that central banks around the world have switched from preferring US bonds. So when the US government decides it wants to fund its military, or which is, inverted commas, keeping the world safe, when they want to fund their military or they want to fund their budget deficits and those sorts of things, what they do is they borrow the money. And the way they borrow the money is they issue what are called treasury securities, they're bonds. And they issue them to all the central banks around the world, and the central banks say, well, the US is the safest place to park my money, and so I'll own US Treasury bonds. But just in the last few weeks, something has switched. And in fact, global central banks now hold more in gold than they hold in US
that's remarkable.
bonds.
Really?
Now
in your time, is that...
that's unusual, really unusual.
You've seen it before?
No, well, yes, we've seen it decades and decades and decades ago.
Long time ago.
When it's partly a function of the fact that gold is at a record high price. So you multiply how many tons they've got by the price, and guess what? The value of that is going to be higher than US Treasury bonds. Wow. If gold collapsed, then it would drop down again. Of course. But it's interesting that the preference, particularly the Chinese central bank and the Russians, they are buying lots and lots of gold, and that's supporting the gold price. But then you start thinking, well, why are they doing that? Why? And it's partly because they worry about the imperialism of sanctions being imposed on them by the United States. So they're saying, well, how do we protect ourselves from that? Let's own gold. And I sort of wonder, well, if they start an armed conflict, let's say over Taiwan or something else, and they join forces and that becomes something that is more serious, then that would make sense that they own gold.
Right.
Right? So it's it's signaling a couple of things. Gold is going up, and we like gold jewelry and whatever, but the next time you walk down the street and you walk past a jewelry store and you see gold, there's a big story going on behind what's happening. And part of it could be that, believe it or not, you walk past a gold store now and you're going to be thinking, gee, are Russia and China going to join forces?
Oh, that's actually funny.
Well, it won't be when
That's
it happens.
actually very funny.
Yeah, but you're now thinking, well, Russia and China, are they joining forces in preparation for a conflict with the United States? Is that why they're buying gold? And is that why the gold prices are record high? But gold is not such a great long-term investment. And so we'll talk about that in a
Yeah,
minute too.
tell us,
and
you
we're
know,
looking globally.
Yeah.
But can we sort of hone in on the Australian investor? You know,
Yeah.
I just want to look at what are the benefits for an Australian investor. Gold.
Well, so
specifically Australia.
Yes.
So think about so that you can expose yourself to gold a number of ways. You can, as an Australian investor, you can go and buy physical gold. You can go to a bullion sales place, you know, and you can line up out the front. You know, you don't want to go during Diwali, you know, the Indian festival.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they buy a lot of gold. So there's often big queues of Indian people during that festival lining up and buying physical gold.
Well, they do have beautiful gold.
But if you
Yeah,
wanted
I
to-
have bought some there.
They
too.
do.
Yeah,
Their
they
gold.
have. I
It's
bought
a
some in
different
Bahrain.
colour.
I was
It's
saying
almost
back in the
brighter,
80s.
their
Yes.
gold.
Well,
I
they've
know
been
it's-
refining it and making jewellery with it for a very, very long
Beautiful.
time.
It's
The
I love
rose
it.
Yeah.
gold as well. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can go and buy physical gold.
We're talking gold.
Always
I'm
comes
moving my
back to
wing as
jewellery.
you're talking.
It
Yeah.
always comes back to jewellery. Anyway, that was
Sorry,
good.
Rog.
No, that's good.
Let's get on to
Got the
bullion.
women here.
I'll wear
So-
a bullion around my neck. Is that
You
hip
can have an
and cool?
ingot. Yeah, you can have a gold ingot.
Actually, that would be
Exactly.
cool.
Oh dear.
And run. Yeah.
It looked like an American rapper.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
seriously, so true with a big heavy
Oh,
gold.
with my
watch.
gold
yeah.
shirt, gold earrings, that's all I need.
You just need a
know.
clock, a small clock, and
Exactly.
hang that off your neck as well.
I'm all for it. I'm
Yeah.
all for
I love it.
you know.
Okay,
Anyway-
other
anyway.
reasons Australians.
Yeah.
for
Okay,
getting
so
gold.
so you can buy physical gold.
Yeah.
The problem with that is that you have to store it somewhere.
Yeah, of course.
They can store it for
Safety.
you.
Yeah.
But then we call it in our industry frictional costs. So frictional costs are the added costs of a transaction. And when you buy physical gold, the frictional costs are very high. So if you buy, for example, if you go and buy a kilogram of gold today from a bullion company, you'll pay, when we're recording this, you'll pay about $173,000 for a kilo of gold, right?
That puts it in perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And by the
Gee.
way, a kilo of gold isn't very big because gold has a huge high density. It's very heavy, and so it's about the size of the palm of your hand.
I got given one for my wedding present from my family.
Yeah.
A cougar rand, is that right?
Oh, yes,
It was
that's a coin.
African.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it's a coin.
Oh, yeah,
right?
rand
Yeah.
it is,
was-
yes, yeah.
Maybe it wasn't that. It looked
It
more
was
like
an
a
ingot.
coin.
So that
Yeah,
so
yeah.
so anyway, so
Yeah.
you buy one of those, and if you get this, buy it for $172,000 or $173,000, but then if you walk out and walk back in and sell it again, you'll immediately, literally, no time has passed, get $8,000 less. And that's rough on a kilo of gold. That's roughly the brokerage that the owner of that bullion company will charge you. So there's a spread between their buy price and their sell price of about $8,000 on a kilo
Gee,
of
they
gold.
must be making
We're in
some
the
good
wrong
money.
career.
They are
Exactly.
making good. Yeah, and I won't name
Huge.
names, but
No,
you
wow.
would all know the people who own these.
Yes. Can I just also
businesses.
Yeah.
jump in, just ask a question because I'm just fascinated with that buying gold.
Yes.
Because I don't know really anything about that. And then so you bought your thing of gold, kilo of gold, and as you said, you got to store it. If that got stolen, is that
Yeah.
anyone's, or is
Gonski?
it was it marked that it's
It's a really good
labelled
question.
to,
It's anyone's.
wow, that's interesting as
Yeah,
well.
that's where
You can get
Bitcoin-
insurance
which
for
we're going
it,
to get
but-
into.
But why would you buy physical gold when you can buy, if you believe
Yeah.
that gold is going up in price, and we'll talk about what gold does, which
Yeah.
is not very much, by the way, other than making
Yeah.
you girls look absolutely spectacular. So in all seriousness, though, you can just go onto the Australian Stock Exchange.
Right, these are other ways to invest in gold.
and you can just buy
Yeah.
GOLD, which is the code,
yeah.
and it's an
Ah.
exchange traded
Are
fund.
you serious?
Yeah, it's an exchange traded
GOLD.
fund that is backed by physical gold. So if you buy units in that particular exchange traded fund, then they're listed and they rise and fall with the price of gold. But instead of paying $8,000 for a
Yes.
kilo of
Yes.
gold, it might be $15 or $20 in brokerage.
And you're not going to
true.
get robbed.
No.
And
Or
you
if
can't
it's a
get robbed.
bully, you're not
Now,
gonna
some
get
people-
attacked.
Now, look, some people buy physical gold coins and they buy ingots and they buy half kilos and kilos and all of that sort of stuff. And they buy it because they are worried that Australia's going to be invaded or there'll be a civil war, and then the Australian dollar won't be worth very much. You might remember I shared that story of a woman coming out of the Ukraine, and when Ukraine was being first being bombed.
Yes.
You know, what a horrendous
Put it into
story.
perspective.
Yeah, the currency became valueless. You needed US dollars or gold or silver to be able to transact. You know, and she had to accumulate, if I remember correctly, I think she had to have something like 14,000 US dollars just for someone to drive her over the border with her child.
Amazing.
So people who think ahead, you know, they prepare for these sort of events. They want gold so that they can still transact and buy food and get around and that sort of thing. But the danger of having a lot of gold is if we were invaded or civil war did break out, you know, which is a crazy suggestion, but if it did happen, then you're now a target. If anyone
True.
finds out that you've got the
Of
gold, you're
course.
probably the first one to be
I
killed.
agree.
You are a target.
Right?
That's what I was thinking.
You know,
You
so-
really are a target in a way.
And on that note, though, like,
So physical
so
gold
if we're going to
doesn't
move
have-
away from physical gold,
Yeah, so then there's
what
the
about
ETF.
gold mining companies,
Well, yes,
for
so
example?
that's
Because
the
that's something
third-
I'm interested in.
Yeah, and so then gold mining companies, they, interestingly, for a long time, despite the fact that the gold price was going up, I mean, in the last few years, gold mining companies didn't. And nobody could work out why. They weren't really going up that much. But now they're catching up. And so gold companies are rising faster than the gold price to kind of catch up with the fact that the gold price has gone up a lot. Now, why would that happen?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, if you think about it, every gold miner they can work out their cost for every ounce of gold that they produce. So the cost of actually digging the earth, the cost of actually refining the dirt, you know, sorting the dirt, then refining and melting the gold and so on. And so there's a cost associated with producing an ounce of gold, and that cost is relatively fixed for a lot of companies. It's not set in stone, but you know, they know what that number's going to be. And if the gold price keeps going up, then given that you've got a relatively set price for gold production, everything else is profit, right?
Oh,
So as the
okay.
more gold goes up, the bigger the profit gets
Yeah.
because your price, let's say it costs you $500 or $1,000 to extract an ounce of gold. Well, if the gold price is $2,000 an ounce, well, now you only make $1,000 profit. But if it jumps up to $3,000 an
Got
ounce,
it.
you're making $2,000. You know, and at the moment it's a lot more than that.
Mm.
So gold mining companies are another way, but then you've got other risks.
Yeah,
Yes,
you've got
okay.
also management decisions
Yeah, so you've
too,
got
which is
correct.
So
I've-
you can
So
buy your
management could get
physical
it
one
gold,
at
wrong.
the
but the gold
moment,
thing-
and there's
yes.
an issue with
They
management.
might run out of gold in the ground, for example. The stock market might crash because of something that's going on overseas, and so gold stocks might go down even though the gold price is up.
Yeah.
So it adds another level of risk or other levels of risk that aren't related to the gold price. So if you
Okay.
want a pure bet
Yeah.
on gold, and you are betting, by the way, it's not investing, and I'll tell you why in a minute.
Well, that's interesting too,
But
isn't it?
if you
Gosh,
want to
yeah.
bet that the gold price is going up, the purest way to do that is through the exchange traded funds that own gold.
So tell us
gold.
about
Okay,
that.
yes.
Well,
So,
that's gold that I mentioned
Right.
earlier.
Yeah,
GOLD.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
geode-
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, that's gold.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
exactly.
I'll never forget the
Yeah.
name.
No, you can't.
Never. You know, like all the
No.
codes for all the
Yeah.
bloody ASX.
Exactly.
company.
ETFs,
Well, that
yeah.
one
I
was
will
easy
never
to
forget
remember.
GOLD.
Yeah.
It's an easy one.
It's a great.
It was a lucky fund manager who got that name.
What option makes the most sense then? You know, like,
Okay, well,
so I'm not
first-
going to get the ones
that's
around
a
my
lot
neck.
to
Maybe
take
I
it,
will,
yeah.
maybe I won't.
Well, first let me say this: gold is a
With a
terrible.
big stereo
No.
on your shoulder.
Exactly.
Boof,
Doof,
boof,
doof,
doof, doof.
Okay, so let me give you some interesting
Okay.
facts about gold. And this is, I think,
I'm
if you
loving
like
this.
gold jewelry, you'll be fascinated by these numbers. If we take all the gold that has ever been mined in the world, the estimate is that there's 216,000 metric tons of gold globally. That's it.
That's it.
That's how much. Now, I don't know if you know this. Do you know how gold is
So I
made? Do you know
find
where
that-
gold comes from naturally?
Isn't it? in the ground.
It's in the ground.
Yeah.
But how did it? It went in, it's
That's
in the ground.
Australian history.
But how did it get
I
there?
studied panning.
Yeah, exactly.
How did it-
The
how did it-
excursion to Bendigo.
How did it get there?
Got more than that.
Do you know how it got there?
Gold.
Yeah.
Actually, to be honest, I mean, over time, compressed, God knows. Go
No.
for it.
Yes.
No, it
Okay.
all comes from outer space.
Excuse me?
It wasn't produced on Earth.
You're kidding me.
I'm not kidding you.
So that's another
Tash,
universal
is he
thing.
kidding?
It's all come from
You are literally blowing us away,
No, hold
Roger.
on. Okay.
all
This
the
is-
gold that exists wasn't manufactured on Earth. It was
I'm-
from outer space.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's
There
a
you go.
line in itself.
Okay, please
That's
explain.
Yes,
Well, I don't know. I
Well,
wasn't there.
how did it get there from outer space?
We need a scientist
Well, I
to
think-
come
Was
in.
it an Astra? Like what
Well, this
landed?
depends. The answer to that depends on your philosophy,
Yeah.
right? Depends on whether you believe that there's a creator or not a creator.
And you know what? I want
Yeah.
our
But
listeners
it came
to
from
write
outer
in
space.
here.
And
to
no one
get
can
to- yeah,
define
but-
how, as in.
Well,
like,
I don't know. I haven't looked that up, but I do know that gold,
That you've
all the
blown
gold
me
in the world
away,
came from outer space.
literally.
But don't you
So
think?
the-
I think if any of our listeners know, I think it's blown us away. It's blown
Yeah.
them away. If you've ever heard any other theories like this, let us know.
Yeah,
'Cause this
exactly.
Is fascinating.
I'd love to know I'm
So,
wrong,
it-
but
it's so.
that's
Where
what
did you
I-
get
that's-
your information from, Roger, on that one?
Well, I checked it.
Yeah, you
So
would, knowing you.
Yes, yeah.
So I asked the question on Google, and then I checked it with 3 different AI engines.
Good. And
Came from outer space.
wow, I'm
Yeah.
literally blown
So,
away.
so the option that makes most sense
Wow.
then is
Well, so let's just
okay.
talk about
Yeah.
gold, right? So other than filling your teeth and making jewelry, right?
that's true.
It-
You see people with a gold front tooth.
and very, very small amounts
that
it
too.
can be.
you
the
could do
volume
that
of
with
that.
your speaker on your
Very,
shoulder.
very
yeah.
small amounts, minute amounts are used in technology,
Yeah.
but really gold doesn't have a huge industrial use. So that
Interesting.
200 now. I did some calculations based on gold's density and so on, and so that 216,000 metric tons. If you melted that all together and made a block of gold,
Yeah.
it would be about the length of a basketball court, about a 7-story high building,
Oh.
a cube about 7 stories high, about 25 to 30 meters cubed, right? So that's a lot
Price
of
of that
gold.
real estate.
Yeah.
you know,
Now, what's it
geez.
worth? What's it worth? While
Yes,
you
what
guys,
is it
Di,
worth?
you'll be pleased to know.
Listen, I'm speechless. It's very rare.
So when you were doing, when you were
You've got me.
when you were giving your introduction,
Yes.
right? I wasn't talking
No,
because I
you've
was
been
doing
a
a
good
calculation.
Boy.
I was being a good boy, but I was
Of course
also
you
doing.
bloody
I
was.
was doing a
Okay.
calculation.
What else
So
does a
you're
fund manager do
studying.
while we're talking?
Yes.
So
the
when I
numbers.
calculate the
Crunching
current,
them.
when I multiply the total metric tons, 216,000 metric tons of gold that's ever been mined, that's the estimate. When I multiplied that by the current gold price in Australian dollars, I get 37.8 trillion Australian dollars. That's how much it's worth. Now, let's say you had, call it 38 trillion. Let's say you had $38 trillion and you were deciding
Yes.
on what you were going to invest in.
Okay.
And you bought that cube of gold, right? Now, in 100 years' time, what would you have? You would have a cube of gold. And what could you do with it? Pretty much the same as what you can do with it now. You can look at it
Interesting.
and you can fondle it.
Yeah.
You know, you can rub it.
Concerns me
know,
when
but
you
that's
say
about
that.
all you can do.
Yeah.
You can't do much else with it, right?
No.
The
And you can
fondling bit, what about
admire it.
touching? Yeah.
You can admire it. You can look at it. You can touch it. But so what?
So
What
I
else could
get
you
your
do?
point now. You
Yeah,
know, like,
no,
you know,
I'm
it's
understanding
an
where
you're
interesting
heading,
way of-
yeah.
What
Okay.
else? So over 100 years,
Yes.
what else could you do with $37 trillion? Right? You could probably buy all of the arable land in Australia and the United States and probably every other developed nation in the world, and think about all the food that you'd produce and sell over the next 100 years if you owned all of that arable land in the developed world. Right? That would be a wiser investment than owning a block of gold. You could probably own all of the real estate in the Middle East and all of the real estate on Manhattan Island and London, right? You could own all of that real estate and you could rent it out. And imagine how much rent you would have produced, because rent keeps going up over time. Imagine how much rent you could have produced over the next 100 years. So in 100 years' time, your great-great-great-grandchildren would be pretty happy with you if you'd spent $37 trillion on all the real estate and all the farmland in the
As
world,
opposed to just holding that gold.
or you bought that block of gold.
Right.
I don't think they'd be very
Roger,
impressed
can
with
It's
we
that.
fascinating.
Can we
Yeah.
put it into
So
the
much
thing?
in
I
that.
think that's sort of like
Is it compounded?
yeah. But with the point that you're making as well,
if you find yourself underneath that block of gold, you'll be compounded.
with our listeners, bringing it back, and I think our listeners too can understand what you're saying with gold. So if you are investing and you want to sort of invest some in gold,
Yes.
would you then you say don't put all your eggs in the one basket?
Correct. You need to
and
diversify.
we talked about with the 3 buckets, because so many
Yes.
of our listeners
Yes.
are really into that. So
Yeah.
am I correct in saying you'd sort of maybe put a portion of that in bucket number 3,
That might be.
which is like
I actually don't think
Or
so. I
2 or
think
3. Is it
I think
2
you
or
might
3?
put. I think you might put Bitcoin, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah,
in
we're
bucket
gonna-
We'll
in-
come
three.
to
I want
that.
to talk
We'll
into
come to-
Bitcoin
we'll come to
now.
that in a
Where would you
minute.
put
Yeah.
it? So what would you say?
It's probably bucket. It could be bucket 3 or bucket 2.
right.
Depending on how long you think you're going to own it for. And that depends on your
Oh, okay.
theory
Yeah,
for owning
yes,
it.
I get
Now,
that.
the thing to remember, if you take one thing away from this chat
Yes.
about gold,
Okay, yes, for our
Love
listeners.
it. Summary.
it is a bet on fear.
Oh, no, you
That's
did
what
say that to us
gold-
the other. That
That
fascinates
is what
me.
gold is.
Can
That's
you
It is
just
a-
what's going
briefly
Yeah.
back that up?
Okay, so it's a bet on people becoming scared about something. They're scared about war. They're scared about the independence of the Reserve Bank in the Federal Reserve in the United States being undermined by Trump. They're scared of a conflict. They're scared of geopolitical issues. They're scared of something, scared of inflation. It's about fear. And gold goes up when fear increases, and when fear is alleviated and people aren't concerned, it goes back down again. The complicating factor at the moment is that those big central banks around the world are also accumulating gold, not out of fear, but perhaps strategically.
Yes.
So whether it's a what we call a tactical bet, which is a sort of a short-term
Yes.
expression of your theory, that'd might go in bucket 2 perhaps, but more likely bucket 3. And if it's long-term, definitely bucket 3.
Gotcha.
But it's not, as I said earlier, it's not an investment, it's a bet. It's speculating that fear will remain or even be accentuated and the gold price will go
It's
higher.
beyond.
Because
Okay.
it has no industrial use.
Roger, you make so much sense. Look, I'm sure the listeners are like Nicola and I. Like, I have such a better understanding of gold. And look, we're going to be talking 2 things today. 1, gold. Number 2 is Bitcoin, which, let's be honest, there's not anyone listening who isn't fascinated by it because a lot of people don't understand it
Yes.
still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's move on to Bitcoin. And what exactly is it? And how does it work? And I know that's just point blank, but let's
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
I
let's
really
have
wanna know.
let's have a blank canvas.
Yeah,
Let's
so-
draw on it.
So we have to start, before we talk about Bitcoin, we have to talk about the blockchain.
Okay.
Right.
Please
So-
explain.
Break that
Okay.
down. Break
All
the
right.
chain down.
So think of the blockchain as a ledger, a spreadsheet, a journal
Okay.
that
Okay.
records
Makes
transactions, right? Now, typically in the past, before 2008, ledgers were owned, or registers of data were all owned by central repositories. So think about, for example, in Australia, we used to have in New South Wales and Victoria the Land Titles Office. Right, that's now PEXA, that's been privatised, and PEXA, PEXA, that is the old Land Titles Office. Now, here's an interesting thing. If you want to sell your property, you need to show your title. You need to show that you have the right to sell that property. That's your property, it's your land title, but you have to pay PEXA, you have to pay the Land Titles Office to get access to your own information. It's like paying a bank to get your own money out.
Right.
And at some point in history, people sort of thought, and they woke up to this and they thought, well, hang on a sec, why do I have to pay for my own information? This is mine. I own this property. It's my land title. Why do I have to pay someone to access it? The reason you have to pay for it is because it's centralised. And what the blockchain is a decentralised ledger. It's where that information...
That makes sense.
Yeah,
It's hit home with me.
yeah,
Okay.
This
Keep
is all-
going. This is
yeah.
great.
So
It's all sinking in. I didn't realise
yeah,
this.
and And so it's decentralized. And what that means is that no single person or organization controls that information and therefore can't charge for it. It's decentralized. It's spread out on lots and lots of computers. And in the blockchain world, those computers are called nodes.
Right.
Right? And Bitcoin was the
Why
first...
those computers are called nodes? Why not all computers have
Well,
nodes?
you have to be connected, or you have to volunteer your computer to be part of that blockchain. And then it becomes a node in that blockchain.
Okay, that makes sense.
It
I
is
understand.
amazing. So when was it created with Bitcoin? Is it all part of sort of like with the whole digital world?
So in 2008,
Right.
Yeah.
so it was 2008, and a person or a group,
Yeah.
we're not sure,
Yeah.
Isn't that
using...
interesting
I
that they
know.
don't know?
Yeah,
I
and
was
the name
reading
was
up about
Satoshi
Yes.
Nakamoto.
Yeah.
They published a Bitcoin white paper in 2008.
Yeah.
And then in 2009, Bitcoin was launched as the first real-world demonstration of blockchain technology. And it solved a problem that exists in digital currency or exists in digital transactions. And that was the double spending idea, that you spend the same digital money twice. Right? And then blockchain became a public ledger for recording Bitcoin transactions.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
And so it
I
demonstrated...
love when he says that, a public ledger.
I know, this
it
is
makes
all,
so much
this
sense.
is all
Yeah.
news to me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
And then what it
loving
did
this.
is
I
it
had no idea.
proved... Then what it did is it proved that a decentralized ledger
Yeah.
could be secure. And it
Okay,
could
yes.
record transactions in a trustworthy way without a central repository or organisation.
Which is what we've always known.
so
It's
what-
what we've
so
grown up
why-
with.
So
yeah,
think about
yeah.
this. So
Yeah.
just think
Yes,
about this for a
yes,
second.
yeah.
And if I think we might have mentioned this on the last podcast, this example, but imagine for a moment that I have $50 cash and I buy something. I buy some of your gold. By the
Yep.
way, don't sell it for $50.
No, that's right. Put a
It's-
few more zeros on that,
Well,
Roger.
with gold at a record price, it would be.
Exactly.
So if I bought something from you for $50 and then you bought something, Nicola, from Di for $50,
Yep.
then what happens to that $50? It's still there. There's still $50 cash, right?
Yes.
And if we do that a million times, there's still $50 cash. But if we try and do that with a debit card or a credit card, what happens? That 50 is eroded by fees.
Of course it is. That's
Right.
true.
So blockchain offers the promise of being digital cash. The idea is, and the hope is, that we can transact and it's never eroded by fees. Okay, that we're not there yet,
No.
but that's one of the promises. And another use case that might be useful, and we don't think about this in Australia because we're so comfortable, relatively speaking. But if you're a woman in Africa and you're escaping a violent marriage and you try and take money across the border, that money is going to be taken from you. Right? You're not leaving
No.
the country with any money.
Yeah.
If you have credit cards, they're being taken from you. But if you can remember your key, your blockchain key, if you like, your 12 words, you can cross the border completely naked, if necessary, with no money on you, and you can then access a computer, log in, and you can
and if
access
you lose your password?
digital money. Well, then you're in trouble.
But you have
So
to crack
is there
the code,
any way? Is
Di.
there any way around it? If you
No, there are people who
See, I've heard
there
of
are people who
people who've actually
believe
lost
they
it,
have
yeah.
billions of dollars or hundreds of
Yeah,
millions of
yeah.
dollars in Bitcoin. They can't remember their password
That's-
to the
gee,
wallet.
that's,
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's a problem.
So it's your
But then
digital
it's secure,
wallet.
isn't
It
it?
goes into your
Digital
digital
wallet.
wallet, right? Which is, in my case, would be on my.
It can't be hacked. Or,
Okay.
well, it can be. There has been hacking
it's hacked.
examples.
It's
So-
amazing.
Hackless.
But anyway,
Yeah.
the point is that's what blockchain is. That's what Bitcoin is. And Bitcoin has become another example of what we call a hedge or protection against a devaluing US dollar.
Yes.
People are saying, well, if the US dollar is going down, I don't want the US dollar. I'm going to buy Bitcoin instead. And what's happened since 2009 is there's been other blockchains that have been created that have smart contracts that can do things like the Ethereum blockchain that has a smart contract. And that enables things to be created like NFTs and autonomous contracts between parties. You could have business contracts on the blockchain. Think about this. Think about a world where there's a non-fungible token or a tokenized piece of information attached to your property. And that the information on that token includes, for example, who you bought it off, what you paid for it, who they bought it from and what they paid for it, what renovations you've done, what bricks you used, what pipes you installed, what taps you installed, where you bought those taps, what you paid for those taps, and people could then, this is a future world where every transaction for a property will include a token that has all the history of that property and everything that's ever been done. Now imagine two properties are for sale that are identical. One has all that information and one doesn't.
Right.
Which one do you want to buy?
Wow.
You probably want the one with all the information.
True.
Without any
And
question
so-
of doubt.
Absolutely.
So the blockchain is going to transform. It's going to transform the world. And if we were recording
it's-
another
Can it be
podcast,
cyber attacked? I know it would be a silly question, but I'm just sort of thinking really, like with
It's-
all this digital world.
people
and you sort of
believe it's
think that,
completely
like,
anonymous. And there's really good questions about anonymity. People have also said that it's very secure and it can't be hacked. There are examples of where money's been stolen,
Yes.
but I'm not sure whether or not they've been hacked or whether people have inadvertently shared information they shouldn't have shared. So the answer is, at the moment, it's regarded as fairly secure because what we're seeing more and more is institutions, big financial institutions, now backing these currencies, these digital currencies.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin and gold, what they are, they're alternative assets.
Yes, yeah.
So, and by alternative means, generally for most people, you're not going to put a lot of money into it. But if you believe the idea that the US dollar is being devalued by what's going on around the world, then these are two places that people are parking some of their money to try and protect or hedge against that, try and ensure against the effects of that on their portfolios.
Incredible.
It's so interesting with Bitcoin because
I worry that it's. I know you think it's interesting, but I worry it's really boring for people who aren't. Who
it's
don't
not.
have
It's
any
so
The mere
exposure to
fact
it.
that
So
fund
topical.
managers are now,
It's becoming-
involved in
And young
Bitcoin. I
people-
never thought that
my
would
son,
happen.
I've got one of my sons is 24. He lives overseas in Japan. He lives in Tokyo, and he's been there for almost 3 years. He has a card. He has a debit card, and it doesn't have any US dollars or Australian dollars in it at all. It has stable coins, which are cryptocurrencies that are backed by the US dollar, and he pays with his crypto card. It's only when he comes to Australia, and he pays for all his accommodation when he's staying at an Airbnb or whatever, and when he's booking a flight, he pays with this card. It's only when he comes to Australia that he can't use it.
I got to say, it's becoming more mainstream when I've
It
gone
is.
online to stuff, and
It
there's
is,
different ways
yeah.
of paying Apple Pay
Yeah.
or your credit card, and they've got with the digital Bitcoin as well.
Yeah,
so
and
It's
and-
astounding what you just said
and
about your
these-
son, though.
And
Is this
Visa
where we're
and,
heading?
Visa and MasterCard and Stripe and PayPal,
Yeah.
they're all now accepting stable coins.
Incredible.
on
And
their
so do you want to
platforms.
run through?
Yes,
You got
yes, yes.
there's stable coins, tokens, and I can't even pronounce Ethereum.
yeah.
God knows what.
Well,
sounds
there's
like
lots
some
of different
drug.
currencies.
Yeah,
but
like
the
I don't
main-
understand them.
Well, the
like-
main two is
Yeah.
Bitcoin's the oldest. It was the
Yes,
first.
yeah.
It's the one that really is the most mainstream.
Yeah.
Ethereum is coming a sort of a distant second.
Yeah.
And it has smart contracts. Then there's Solana. Then there's a whole bunch of others. And then there's what we call, you might want to bleep this out, but you know the S word, the expletive, the S word. There's S word coins as well.
Which
and
is
they're
stable. Isn't it stable coins?
no,
it's another one.
SHIT
Yeah.
coins.
Shite.
Are you no, because I'm reading stable coins.
Yeah, well,
I
so-
like
Yes,
that one.
yeah.
Yeah, so stable
Go that to
coins.
shite.
So stable coins are where people
Yeah.
who trade cryptocurrencies park their cryptocurrencies without leaving the blockchain. So instead of converting,
Hold on.
Okay, so
Bring that
let's-
back into
all right, so
more
let's say,
simpleman's terms.
okay, let's say I think Bitcoin's going up,
Yep.
so I want to buy some Bitcoin.
Yep.
So I've got money sitting in an exchange, a cryptocurrency exchange, but it's parked in stable coins. So that means it's a cryptocurrency, but it's backed by the US dollar. And so, in other words,
When you say
it's not,
backed by the US dollar,
so every time I buy a stable coin,
Yeah.
the exchange has to show or demonstrate that every one of those is backed by a US dollar. There's a physical US dollar to secure my
I didn't know
my
that.
deposit in that account.
Okay.
Right, and so it's backed
That's
by
different.
it's a stable coin, so it's stabilized. It could go up and down with
Of
the
course,
US dollar,
of course.
but now I'm not exposed to Bitcoin. But if I want to buy Bitcoin,
Okay.
I was just
I
gonna
then
say
have
that
to
too,
move
yeah.
some out of stable coins
Yes.
into Bitcoin. And if I decide, hey, I think Bitcoin's going down now, I don't want exposure to Bitcoin, I move it out of Bitcoin back to stable coin.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I understand
And so
that.
yesterday, my son,
He's the expert.
Some years ago,
We're
he
going to get your
bought.
son on. Can we
Imagine
get,
having-
get,
you
get,
could-
get your son on? That would be
Imagine having a
fantastic.
father like
I
Roger
would
Bauer.
ask him. I'd ask him if he'd come on. But
We'd love that for a young person. And just another question. So I'm actually now, I haven't got any Bitcoin and I actually wouldn't mind getting some.
Mm.
So how do we go about it? Like, what do we do to get
Well,
Bitcoin?
okay. So
do I
it-
line up
does
somewhere
it
or
work?
do I go
it's still a
online and-
palaver to go and conduct due diligence on the exchanges, work out which exchange you need a wallet, a digital wallet if you like. You need to create that. You need to then transfer money. Then you need to know all your passwords. And it is people who do it every day. It's easy. My son does it every day. He finds it very, very straightforward. He sends me an instruction on what I need to do, and I've been.
It's interesting how
I've been
it's-
in
I love
finance
it.
my
I
whole
love
life.
It is the younger
I've
person
been in
as well,
finance my
isn't it?
whole
is
life,
so
and I'm
good.
oh my gosh, Jordan, this is such a palaver, really. Anyway, so there are easier ways. So there are now exchange traded funds that are backed by Bitcoin.
Okay.
So you can now buy in Australia and in the United States, for example, you can buy exchange traded funds. The code is IBIT, IBIT. And it's
okay.
backed by Bitcoin. And so then you don't need to worry about digital exchanges. You don't need to worry
Right.
about any of
It's
that.
just
And
more
how do you do
streamlined.
that? Is it through a fund
through,
manager or
through the stock exchange.
Yeah, I get
Okay.
You open an
that.
account with
Yeah.
NabTrade, or you open an
Yes.
account with ComSec, for example, and you just buy it like any other share on the stock market. But it will rise and fall with the Bitcoin price.
Of course.
So when you buy a unit in one of those exchange traded funds, the manager of that fund
Yeah.
has to go and buy Bitcoin. Right. And so when that happened, they were all approved by the Security and Exchange Commission in the United States back in January last year, January 2024. And I remember we hadn't met at that stage, but I was giving an interview on ABC's Nightlife with Phil Clark.
Yes.
And I said, Phil, this is going to be transformational. This is a big deal. The SEC has just approved all of these funds can be backed by physical Bitcoin. So what's going to happen? All these people who thought buying Bitcoin
Yeah.
was too complicated
yeah.
are now going to rush into these ETFs, the exchange traded funds, and those exchange traded funds have to go and buy Bitcoin. And what's that going to do? It's going to push the Bitcoin price up,
course.
and that's precisely what's happening.
You know, the
Wow.
fascinating
Okay,
thing
that
is
is
it's
fascinating.
still new kid on the block for a lot of people.
Oh, it is.
But ultimately, I guess what you've really got to understand, because I've been reading up a little bit on this, is it's here to stay. It's mainstream.
It is here to stay for the
It's
reasons I
mainstream.
explained a minute ago.
And
So
that's what
Yeah.
blew me away the most.
don't listen to this potty and go, it's not going to affect me.
Yeah, yes.
If you're going to be around in 5, 10, 15, 20 years,
Yeah.
it's going to have a bigger and bigger impact on your life. It's going to become more and more mainstream.
Isn't this
It isn't
fascinating?
going.
It's fascinating.
It doesn't mean it won't be volatile.
Of
there's
course,
yeah.
cryptocurrency
but so's
prices.
everything ultimately.
But you know
isn't
what, Roger?
it?
It's actually good to hear that
Life
because
is volatile.
it's relatively new, and especially with our generation
Yes,
as well.
yes.
And then when it did come out, then we
30-year-olds.
heard sort of like I know you're hearing stuff too. It all of a sudden people lost so much money with Bitcoin. To me, I sort of think, that could be a really unsafe, scary thing.
There is
to
a
go
way
in.
to invest without
But-
taking a bet on the direction of Bitcoin as well.
Okay.
So we've recently partnered up
This is
with.
what I
I
love.
want to. That's
Yeah.
the way I'd go.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, we've
What
recently.
do you call this? Is
Well,
it like a? It's
a fund.
It's
Oh,
a. It's
okay.
okay.
It's
So
a
it's
digital
a
asset
specialist
fund.
managed fund. This one.
Yeah, so it's a
Okay.
managed fund, and we've partnered
tell
with the
us.
managers of this fund.
Yeah.
They're called DAFM or DAFM, Digital
Right.
Asset Funds Management.
Yeah.
And what they've done is they've created a fund that they make a profit as long as Bitcoin is volatile. They don't need it to go up or they don't care whether it goes up or
Okay.
down as long as it's volatile. And I don't want to get too technical here,
No.
but they're trading thousands of times a day using computers across different cryptocurrency exchanges, and they're arbitraging.
Oh, I was about to say
Okay.
that.
So
I
that's
held
good.
back.
I think
You would have
Yes.
been so proud of me.
I know.
I was going to say,
I
is
was
that
too. Going to
arbitrage?
say with a little difference.
So let me explain what. Okay, let me quickly explain what arbitrage is.
I love
So-
it. Want me
I'd
to
like to hear that
explain
So
it?
let's say you're walking through a farmer's
Yeah.
market.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're walking through a
Yeah.
farm, you're on holidays, you're loving it, there's apples everywhere, it's all fresh, it's
Yeah.
all homemade.
I like
There's no
farmers
micro
markets, don't
there's
you?
no microplastics, there's no chemicals, it's just everyone's
Bite
happy.
the apple.
Right, it's all good. Anyway, you're walking through the farmer's market and you notice one of the stands has no apples left. And the ladies there, the lady or man, husband and wife, they've got a sign that says, "We'll buy your apples for $1 a kilo." Now you've just walked past a stand a little bit further back in the aisle, and the guy there's selling apples for 90 cents. So you race back. You already know you can sell them for $1. So you go and buy all these apples for 90 cents a kilo, and then walk them up to the lady or man over here buying the apples for $1. And you sell them for $1. You have just arbitraged apples and made 10 cents.
10 cents.
Got
yeah.
it.
And there was
Got
no
it.
risk.
No. So
There was-
that's the difference
Yeah.
between it.
There was
So
no
that's sort of
risk.
a
But
simple
what is-
way of sort of
I
saying
was talking to someone
Yeah.
about arbitrage on the weekend. It was fascinating talking about. He worked for a company in London. They moved years ago closer to where they can get faster Wi-Fi.
Yes.
So they can arbitrage
Or faster,
things.
yeah, so-
Which that's
high
where it
frequency-
landed for me.
So high
and he said,
frequency
now it's
traders.
changed.
Yeah, so there's a thing
yeah.
called HFT,
Yeah.
which are high frequency traders. And what happens is if you put an order on for, let's say you try and buy 10,000 shares,
Yeah.
then what's going to happen is that order is going to be routed to the stock exchange,
Yeah.
right? And it's millionths of a second.
Yeah, this is fascinating.
But if there is a high frequency trading operation that is closer, they can actually see the first parcel of trades go through and know there's more parcels coming.
Yeah.
And cut them off.
Yes.
Buy them before you do and then
Yeah.
sell them back to you.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's-
arbitrage.
we're talking
I was
about
going, what's
small-
arbitrage, Roger?
So we're
Now
talking
I'm
about
like,
really
oh,
small profits,
Yeah.
but millions of times a day.
Unbelievable.
And it all adds up.
Of course it does.
And so the guys that we've partnered with,
So tell us about that.
well, what they're doing is they're trading what's called an inefficient market. So they're buying and selling futures contracts on Bitcoin, for example,
Right.
across different exchanges that are trading those contracts at different prices at the same time. So they're buying over there and selling over there. So they're buying the
Arbitrage.
apples. They're buying the
Yeah.
apples from that exchange and selling the apples to that exchange. And they're doing that multiple times
Yeah.
really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And over a month, they don't care whether Bitcoin goes up or down. They make a profit as long as there's an arbitrage, there's a difference
Correct.
between what they buy and sell. And so they've been running now for, they've been running now for more than 4 years, just
Yeah.
over 4 years. 52 months.
Yeah.
And in that 52 months, they've had 51 profitable
You're kidding
months.
me.
You're kidding.
No.
Okay, well,
Like,
so
how
if
many-
I wanted
I
to
mean,
invest, say, X amount of
that's
money, because this
wild.
is sounding really good to me and a way that I'd feel kind
Well,
of
it's not
safe
for
about
everyone.
It. No,
It's
it's
not
not
for
but I'm saying,
everyone.
could I still
No.
get like a monthly return, or how do you access money then if you're going to invest some in this?
So you can-
completely one?
so-
how
so-
does it work? 'Cause
So it's important to talk
sounds
to your
interesting.
advisor
Yeah.
about whether it's appropriate. And what you need to say to your advisor is you just need to say, I've heard about this
Yes.
fund called DAFM,
Mm-hmm.
managed by a company called DAFM, DAFM, F for finance, if you like, and ask them to go and research it. And then they can decide whether it's appropriate for you or not.
Yes.
Because, unless you want to ignore their advice,
Yeah.
which I don't advise, they know your financial circumstances and needs, and they're the ones who are giving you appropriate advice. But yeah, these funds exist, and that's another way
That's just
that you can.
fascinating, isn't it?
I
You
feel
can be
Another way of
safer
doing it.
being with, firstly, a fund manager, but secondly, the mere fact that you've merged with this company that are.
We haven't
and-
merged.
Well,
We-
not merged, whatever.
just
you've
partnered with them.
with, should I say. And what for my brain, what I love is that they're the experts in that field.
Yes. Yes.
And from your perspective as a fund manager, I really respect that you've partners with someone who is a specialist.
They are a specialist, and they're rocket scientists.
That makes
doing
me
this.
feel comforted, I guess is the word.
I think it is for a lot of people of our generation, maybe.
Yes,
I don't know, would sort of
absolutely.
feel it's a good way of doing it. And I think it's a great way of diversifying some money. And I think it's an interesting thing because I'd like to have some money in something kind of relatively new.
Well, remember we talked about a few podcasts.
Gold.
Yes, it really interests me. This.
Remember we talked a few
can wear the
podcasts
big
ago
cup.
about
No more of it.
Where your password.
we talked about building a portfolio, and I used the analogy of a boat. Do you
Yes,
remember
I
that?
love
That's
that.
right.
And-
yes,
and,
yeah.
Most of your portfolio is creating the hull of the boat.
Yes.
So that's the stable stuff that you know really well, you understand, and that's going to keep you dry and afloat. Then you have an engine which keeps you moving in the right direction. So that might be your growth part of your portfolio. That's where you might have, your shares, or you might have small companies and so on. And then I said, and if there's anything left over, you might have something. You might have a turbo on the outboard engine.
I
And
love
that's the
hearing this. I want
and
to hear
that's
it
the
again and
smaller
again.
amount of money
Yeah.
that just boosts your return. And people often put that smaller amount of money into very high risk things. I think this fund that I've just described, given that it's not going to, the guys aren't going to put a trade on, they're not going to invest unless they can see a profit.
Right.
That maybe
love
reduces or mitigates some
love
of
it.
the risks
Right.
associated with that higher risk space that is definitely cryptocurrencies.
Well, okay. Well, that is incredible.
It's unreal. It's like
So with gold,
I know, and
look,
Bitcoin.
and people, and then also listeners, let us know questions that you've got about this because
Yeah.
we certainly
So
are learning
important,
as we
yeah.
go about it, and also some of the
it's-
questions too was with AI, and I don't know whether we can talk about that in other
Sure.
episodes too.
Yeah.
But people are sort of then asking
That's another topical
another
issue.
topic as
Yeah,
well. But because
yeah.
Well, it's
people are
affecting
going on
people's
AI,
jobs.
It's affecting
Sorry?
people's
Well,
Oh,
it's affecting
it's
people's jobs. Look at the banks.
jobs.
The banks,
World over.
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
ANZ, Westpac, the NAB, Commonwealth Bank sort of stands out as having not done it, but they're collectively sacking thousands of people or making thousands of people redundant because they're streamlining and they're automating and they're using AI.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a really big story in the future where
It's interesting.
our
that,
salaries
yes.
won't go up as quickly because if we kick up a stink, well, we'll just be potentially many jobs will be replaced by autonomous.
There's a bit of fear. We
solutions.
better buy some gold.
Yes, exactly. Bitcoin,
Roger,
wow.
look, today was seriously a very clear run through. I mean, I learned so much as I always do.
Incredible. Yeah.
And of course, we looked at two very different but fascinating asset classes.
Exactly.
with
So what gold,
and
what the
Bitcoin.
traditional safe
so
haven.
topical, so everyone's talking about it, and I hope, like us, that excuse the expression, it's grounded, that you feel
Yeah, the
more grounded
grounded
with
gold.
your knowledge around these, and ultimately to invest and invest wisely. In my opinion, Bitcoin, I was always saying to people, oh, don't touch that, it's so volatile. Never go there with Bitcoin. Now I've looked into it, I understand it, it's more acceptable, as Roger's explained. I feel safer that
Sure.
if I and when I invest
It's
in
good.
Bitcoin.
You feel that way. I certainly do. And let us know how you feel with
Yeah.
all our back
Really
fences because
important.
the messages and
Yeah.
lessons, are coming in, which is great. So,
And if you enjoyed it, can you
Yes.
share it with your friends?
Yep.
If you're curious like we are about gold or Bitcoin, talk about it. And for more insights from Roger, head to montinvest.com. That's montinvest.com, or his blog at rogermontgomery.com.
Great. And we have all this in our show notes too. So,
Roger, you're amazing, as always.
It's fun.
Seriously,
It's
you're a really
fun.
good human. We
You
both
Thank you.
adore
are.
you.
Thank you.
No,
You didn't get
quite
in trouble?
genuine. You're genuine, and I love the word safe because I think when you're investing, you talk about fear, and
Yes.
gold is driven by
By
fear.
fear, exactly.
Well, Nicola and I feel safe when we talk to you and learn from you, and we really appreciate
and
your
it's
time
still fun.
today.
You're saying F for finance. I'm going F for fun.
Well,
because
S
you
for
do
shite,
make-
you mean?
You do make
I was
it
talking
shine. No,
about
I was
something-
going, what do you mean?
I
I'm
was going down another road.
it's the SHITE. like fun is FUNN. We're getting an Eon to shine. It's like that.
Roger,
so everyone, thank
it's,
you for
it's
listening.
always a pleasure.
Thank you,
having
guys.
on board,
And we'll
really.
be
Thank you
back
for having me.
next
Yeah.
month. And we've
Thank
got
you.
so much more to talk about. And I'd like to
Yeah.
get your son on at some stage. Let's ask him. Jordan.
It's
I
actually
will.
fascinating, a younger person's
That's
perspective.
great. Yeah,
Thanks,
tune in.
Roger.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Ciao, ciao. Bye.